Imagine this, it's 6:30 a.m. in Manhattan and Sarah, a marketing executive, stares at her reflection in her apartment bathroom mirror. Before she's even had her first cup of coffee, her mind is already attacking her. You're going to mess up that presentation today. Everyone will see you're not qualified for this promotion. You're just fooling yourself. Sound familiar? You're not alone. A staggering 85% of people struggle with low self-esteem linked to negative self-talk at some point in their lives. That's a number big enough to stop us in our tracks and demand we ask, what's really going on in our minds? Today, we're diving deep into a topic that is as challenging as it is transformative: killing your negative thinking. This isn't just about silencing that inner critic, it's about empowering ourselves to live more fulfilling lives. In the world of Stoicism, we find a profound understanding that our thoughts are not mere whispers in the mind. They are the loud voices that dictate our happiness and our suffering. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who ruled Rome while battling his own inner demons, understood this intimately. He wrote in his personal journal, now known as Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This wasn't just philosophical theory for Marcus, it was survival wisdom for leading an empire while maintaining inner peace. Stoic wisdom teaches us that while the world might not bend to our will, our perception of it is entirely up to us. The Stoics weren't just ancient philosophers sitting in marble halls debating abstract concepts. They were the ultimate mental warriors battling against the tyranny of uncontrolled thoughts and emotions with the weapons of rationality and inner calm. Epictetus, who spent years as a slave before becoming one of history's greatest teachers, knew firsthand that external circumstances don't determine our inner freedom. Think about Marcus, a financial analyst on Wall Street who discovered that his worth wasn't determined by market fluctuations or his boss's approval, but by how he chose to respond to pressure. Or Jennifer, a tech entrepreneur in Los Angeles who learned that her startup success or failure didn't define her character, her commitment to virtue did. Today, I'm here to guide you through understanding how negative thoughts impact us and to explore practical Stoic strategies to combat them. We'll learn how to harness the power of our minds to construct a life not bounded by the chains of negativity, but propelled by the four cardinal virtues that form the foundation of Stoic philosophy: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. If you're skeptical, I encourage you to stay with me. This might challenge some of your deepest held beliefs, but it will also open the door to a new horizon of personal growth. Before we jump in, I invite you to share this video with others who are on their own journey of personal growth and philosophical exploration. And if you appreciate the insights we're exploring here at Stoic Vivu, hit that subscribe button. Together, we're building not just knowledge, but a community of wisdom and strength. 1. Recognizing the enemy within, understanding our mental battlefield. David, a medical resident at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, sits in the hospital cafeteria at 2 a.m. after a grueling 16-hour shift. His hands shake slightly as he holds his coffee, not from caffeine, but from the relentless voice in his head. You missed that diagnosis. You're going to kill someone. You don't belong here. Everyone else is smarter, faster, better. This isn't just exhaustion talking, this is negative thinking in its most destructive form, and it's waging war against David's potential. Negative thinking isn't just an occasional nuisance or a fleeting bad mood, it's a pervasive issue that can dramatically impact every facet of our lives. From how we feel when we wake up in the morning to the choices we make about our health, careers, and relationships, these thoughts can be absolutely debilitating. But what really is negative thinking? At its core, it's a pattern of anticipating the worst, undermining our own efforts, and often assuming we are less capable or deserving than we truly are. Consider Amanda, a software engineer in Seattle who, despite consistently delivering excellent code, constantly tells herself she's just lucky and that her colleagues will eventually discover she's a fraud. Or think about Carlos, a real estate agent in Miami who, after one difficult client meeting, spirals into believing he's terrible at his job and should quit entirely. These aren't isolated incidents, they're manifestations of a mental battlefield where negative thoughts have gained the upper hand. But here's where Stoic wisdom cuts through the fog of confusion. The Stoic philosophers believed that it's not the events themselves that disturb us, but rather our interpretations of these events. Epictetus, who understood suffering intimately having lived as a slave, famously declared, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view which they take of them." This perspective is at the heart of understanding our problem with negative thinking. It's not necessarily the reality that constrains us, it's the lens through which we view our world. When David makes a minor mistake during rounds, the objective reality is simply that, a minor mistake, correctable and part of the learning process. But his interpretation transforms this small error into evidence of his incompetence, a prediction of future disasters, and proof of his unworthiness. The event remains the same, but the interpretation creates his suffering. Carl Jung's exploration of the human psyche provides further insight into this phenomenon. He recognized that much of our negative thinking stems from the less conscious parts of our mind, the personal and collective unconscious. Jung wrote with profound insight, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." By bringing these unconscious beliefs and biases into the light of conscious examination, we can begin to mitigate their control over us. Think of Lisa, a consultant in Denver who grew up hearing her parents constantly worry about money. Now, despite earning a six-figure salary, she lives in perpetual anxiety about financial ruin. Her unconscious absorbed those early messages, and now they direct her life from the shadows, creating stress that has no basis in her current reality. Consider for a moment the devastating impact this has on our everyday lives. When faced with a challenge, negative thinking can make us feel as though we've already lost before we've begun, preventing us from taking the very actions that could lead to success. It's like being in a boat and rowing with all your might, but not realizing you're anchored to the shore. No matter how hard you try, you're not going anywhere. Marcus Aurelius understood this trap intimately. As emperor, he faced constant challenges that could have overwhelmed him with negative thinking. Instead, he developed the practice of examining his thoughts with rigorous scrutiny. In his meditations, he writes how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself. This kind of introspection allows us to detach from harmful thinking patterns and regain control of our mental landscape. The Stoic approach teaches us to become detectives of our own minds, questioning every negative assumption with the persistence of a skilled investigator. When Amanda tells herself she's just lucky, a Stoic would ask, is this thought based on evidence or assumption? Does this thought serve my growth or hinder it? What would I tell a friend experiencing the same situation? Let's not underestimate the influence of our societal and cultural backdrop in this mental warfare. We live in a world saturated with messages of not being enough, whether it's not successful enough, rich enough, smart enough, or attractive enough. Social media amplifies these messages, creating highlight reels of others' lives that make our behind-the-scenes struggles seem inadequate by comparison. Jennifer, scrolling through LinkedIn at her Los Angeles apartment, sees post after post of entrepreneurs celebrating funding rounds, promotions, and achievements. Her mind immediately translates this into evidence of her own inadequacy. Everyone else is succeeding while I'm struggling. I must be doing something wrong. These external messages find fertile ground in minds already primed for self-doubt, sprouting weeds of insecurity that can choke our potential. But here's where Stoicism becomes our ally in this mental battlefield. Stoic philosophy arms us with the tools to clear out these weeds and cultivate a garden of more supportive, empowering thoughts. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, confine yourself to the present. Instead of allowing our minds to spiral into comparisons and catastrophic thinking, we can anchor ourselves in what is actually happening right now in this moment. This issue of negative thinking is precisely what we're tackling today. It's not just about dismissing or avoiding negative thoughts. That's like trying to stop a river by standing in front of it. Instead, it's about understanding them deeply, questioning them thoroughly, and then replacing them with reasoned, constructive thinking. The Stoic approach isn't just about coping, it's about thriving. By mastering our thoughts, we master our perceptions, and ultimately we master our lives. 2. Tracing the roots of mental tyranny, the genesis of destructive thought. Jennifer sits in her Los Angeles startup office at midnight, staring at her laptop screen. The voice in her head sounds eerily familiar. It's her high school math teacher from 15 years ago. "You're not cut out for this kind of work, Jennifer. Maybe you should consider something more suitable." Now, as she builds her tech company, that same dismissive tone echoes in her mind every time she faces a coding challenge or investor meeting. Understanding the origins of negative thinking is essential if we are to address it effectively. This isn't just about identifying bad mental habits. It's about uncovering the deep-seated roots that shape our perceptions and influence our entire mental landscape. Negative thoughts often sprout from a variety of sources that interweave throughout our lives. Our upbringing, societal pressures, past failures, and sometimes the seemingly inconsequential comments from those around us. Each of these can plant seeds of doubt, fear, and limitation, which can mature into a persistent state of negativity that follows us like a shadow, whispering limitations into our ears when we need courage most. From a very young age, many of us are introduced to environments that might not foster positive self-esteem. Consider Marcus, our Wall Street financial analyst, who grew up in Chicago with well-meaning parents who constantly said, "Don't get your hopes up, and life is hard, so don't expect too much." These phrases, intended to protect him from disappointment, instead became the foundation of a worldview that expects failure and guards against success. Or think about Amanda, the Seattle software engineer, whose elementary school teacher publicly embarrassed her for asking too many questions, leading to decades of self-doubt about her intellectual capabilities. These experiences can significantly color our worldview in ways we don't even recognize. Aristotle, the great philosopher who tutored Alexander the Great, once remarked with profound insight, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit." If we apply this thinking to the mind, we see that repeated negative thoughts can become a habit of seeing ourselves and our capabilities in a diminished light. Just as a musician practices scales until they become automatic, we can practice negative thinking until it becomes our default response to life's challenges. The educational systems many of us experienced often reinforce these patterns. David, our Boston medical resident, recalls his pre-med courses where only perfection seemed acceptable. Any grade below an A was treated as a catastrophic failure, creating a mental framework where anything less than perfection equals worthlessness. This black and white thinking, psychologists call it all or nothing thinking, becomes deeply embedded in our neural pathways. Our own experiences of failure and rejection serve to reinforce these negative scripts with devastating efficiency. Every time we face a setback or encounter criticism, It can affirm a negative internal dialogue that whispers, "I knew I couldn't do it." This becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, not because we lack capability, but because we begin to act in ways that align with our negative beliefs about ourselves. Carlos, the Miami real estate agent, experienced this firsthand when a potential client rudely dismissed him during a showing. Instead of recognizing this as one person's bad day or poor manners, his mind immediately cataloged it as evidence. "I'm not good at this. I don't have what it takes. I should find another career." This single incident, filtered through years of accumulated negative programming, became proof of inadequacy rather than simply an unpleasant interaction. Plato's profound insight that reality is created by the mind, "We can change our reality by changing our mind," is profoundly relevant here. By examining and challenging our interpretations of these events, we can start to dismantle the foundation of our negative thoughts. When Carlos learned to ask himself, "Is this one person's reaction representative of my overall abilities?" he began to see that his interpretation, not the event itself, was creating his suffering. Fear also plays a critical role in fostering negative thinking, acting like fertilizer for the seeds of doubt. It's a natural protective mechanism that often spirals into excessive worry or anxiety, overshadowing our rational judgment with clouds of catastrophic thinking. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, and fear of rejection can all lead to what psychologists call catastrophic thinking, where the mind jumps to the worst possible outcomes like a grasshopper leaping from disaster to disaster. Lisa, the Denver consultant, experiences this when facing career transitions. Her mind doesn't just consider the possibility of a new job not working out. It immediately jumps to scenarios of professional ruin, financial devastation, and social humiliation. Stoicism offers a powerful tool against this mental tyranny: the premeditation of evils, or premeditatio malorum. This practice involves visualizing the worst-case scenario in detail, not to increase anxiety, but to lessen its emotional impact when or if it actually occurs. Seneca wrote, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster." Carl Jung's insight becomes particularly relevant here. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Many of our negative thoughts are rooted in unconscious beliefs, formed in our early years and influenced by our guardians, teachers, and the media we consumed. These unconscious beliefs often go unchallenged because they operate below the radar of our conscious awareness, like computer programs running in the background. Moreover, societal and cultural pressures cannot be overlooked in this analysis. We live in a society that often emphasizes scarcity and competition, setting exceptionally high standards that can seem unattainable. Social media amplifies these pressures, creating a constant stream of comparison opportunities. Every success story we see becomes potential evidence of our own inadequacy. Every achievement post becomes a reminder of what we haven't accomplished. The roots of negative thinking are varied and complex, involving personal history, emotional experiences, ingrained fears, and societal messages. However, by leveraging the wisdom of Stoic philosophy, we can begin to understand and unravel these negative thought patterns, not just to mitigate their effects, but to reconstruct our mental framework in a more resilient and empowering way. 3. Forging the Stoic Mind, the art of mental renovation. At 5 a.m. in her Manhattan apartment, Sarah begins what she calls her mental renovation hour. 6 months ago, she would have spent this time scrolling through social media, absorbing a steady stream of anxiety-inducing news and comparison-triggering posts. Now, she sits with Marcus Aurelius Meditations open on her kitchen table, a journal beside it, deliberately choosing the thoughts that will shape her day. This transformation didn't happen overnight. It required the kind of profound mental renovation that the Stoics understood as essential for human flourishing. When we talk about renewing our minds, we're not just suggesting a fleeting attempt to think more positively or paste motivational quotes over deep-seated negativity. We're advocating for a profound and enduring transformation of our internal dialogue, a complete renovation of the mental architecture that governs our daily experience. This is about cultivating a mindset that enables us not just to survive the challenges of modern life, but to thrive in the face of them. The Stoic philosophers offer timeless guidance on how this mental renovation can be achieved through the disciplined practice of reflecting on our thoughts and deliberately shaping them to foster resilience and inner peace. They understood that the mind, like a muscle, grows stronger with proper exercise and weaker with neglect. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his personal journal while managing the complexities of ruling an empire, demonstrated this daily practice of mental renovation. One of the central tenets of Stoicism is the revolutionary idea that our emotions and reactions are the results of our judgments, which are entirely within our power to change. This isn't positive thinking or wishful thinking. It's a fundamental recognition of human agency. Marcus Aurelius, reflecting on this power during his military campaigns along the Danube, wrote with conviction, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This powerful assertion reminds us that renovation begins by seizing control of our thoughts, scrutinizing them for accuracy, and then aligning them with our true intentions and values. Consider David, our Boston medical resident, who learned to apply this principle during his most challenging rotations. When he made a mistake during surgery, his old mental pattern would spiral. "I'm incompetent. I'll never be a good doctor. I'm going to hurt someone." His renovated mind learned to pause and examine these thoughts. "I made an error. Errors are part of learning. What can I learn from this to improve my performance?" Same event, completely different internal experience. Aristotle provides another crucial foundation for mental renovation with his insight. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. This introspective journey involves diving deep into our thought patterns with the curiosity of a scientist and the compassion of a friend. It means identifying those thoughts that serve us well versus those that sabotage our efforts and undermine our potential. Amanda, the Seattle software engineer, discovered through this self-examination that her thoughts of being lucky rather than skilled were actually protecting her from the vulnerability of claiming her competence. The process of challenging and changing our thoughts isn't about denying our emotions or pretending difficulties don't exist. It's about understanding our emotional responses better and thus managing them more effectively. When Jennifer faces investor rejection for her Los Angeles startup, her renovated mind doesn't pretend it doesn't hurt. Instead, it processes the disappointment while maintaining perspective. This rejection is feedback, not a verdict on my worth. Each no brings me closer to the right yes. Carl Jung's insights into the human psyche complement this Stoic wisdom beautifully, offering a psychological framework for understanding mental renovation. Jung argued with profound insight, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." Instead of resisting negative thoughts like trying to hold back the ocean, Stoicism teaches us to acknowledge them, analyze their origin, and assess their truthfulness. This method prevents these thoughts from festering in the shadows of our unconscious, where they can grow unchecked and gain power over our behavior. Marcus, our Wall Street analyst, learned this lesson when dealing with his fear of market volatility. Instead of trying to suppress his anxiety, he learned to examine it. I'm feeling anxious about tomorrow's earnings report. This anxiety stems from my desire to control outcomes that are largely beyond my control. I can prepare thoroughly and respond skillfully to whatever happens, but I cannot control the market's reaction. Mental renovation requires us to engage actively with materials and activities that nurture positivity and growth. This might include reading philosophical texts that challenge our understanding, engaging with art that inspires us, or simply spending time in reflection and meditation. These activities provide new narratives and perspectives that can replace our old, unhelpful stories. Seneca, writing to his friend Lucilius, emphasized this principle. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Mental renovation often requires ending our relationship with thoughts that no longer serve us. Socrates' insistence on the importance of living an examined life plays a crucial role in this renovation process. By continually examining our beliefs and the thoughts that stem from them, we engage in a process of mental renovation that keeps our minds agile and our spirits aligned with our philosophical goals. This ongoing examination isn't merely a task to be completed, but a way of living that keeps our internal world refreshed and attuned to the reality of our experiences. Carlos, the Miami real estate agent, practices this examination every evening, reviewing his day's thoughts and interactions. He asks himself, which thoughts today moved me toward my goals? Which ones held me back? How can I respond differently tomorrow? This practice transforms daily experience into daily wisdom. Plato emphasized the importance of aligning with the forms, the ideal versions of justice, beauty, and goodness. In a similar vein, renewing our minds can be seen as an effort to align our thoughts with the most virtuous and empowered versions of ourselves. By aspiring to these ideals, we craft a self-concept that is robust, compassionate, and deeply wise. To put all of this into practice, we can start each day with what Lisa, our Denver consultant, calls her philosophical morning pages. A simple affirmation or Stoic reflection that sets the tone for the type of thoughts we wish to nurture. Whether it's Epictetus' reminder about the power of our responses, or a personal mantra that reminds us of our strength in facing challenges, these daily practices become the building blocks for a renovated mind. 4. Curating your philosophical environment, the company of virtue. Lisa stands in the lobby of a Denver networking event, surveying the room full of professionals. 6 months ago, she would have gravitated toward the group complaining about their bosses, the economy, and how impossible it is to succeed in consulting. Tonight, she deliberately walks toward a small circle discussing innovative problem-solving techniques and professional development. This conscious choice represents a fundamental Stoic principle. We become like those we surround ourselves with, and our environment shapes our thoughts as surely as water shapes stone. The ancient Stoics understood that mental renovation doesn't happen in isolation. Our surroundings, the people we spend time with, the content we consume, the physical spaces we inhabit, all contribute to the ongoing formation of our character and the quality of our thoughts. This principle involves consciously choosing our environment, people, places, and media that support and enhance our mental and emotional well-being, rather than drain and diminish it. Seneca, writing from his experience as advisor to emperors and witness to the corruption of power, offered this timeless wisdom: associate with people who are likely to improve you. This isn't about surrounding ourselves with yes people or avoiding all challenges, but about being intentional and selective about our company. We must cultivate relationships that inspire and challenge us to grow rather than those that reinforce our limitations and feed our fears. Consider Marcus, our Wall Street financial analyst, who realized that his after-work routine of joining colleagues for complaint sessions about their demanding boss was actually reinforcing his negative thought patterns. These gatherings, disguised as stress relief, were actually stress amplification chambers where everyone's worst fears and frustrations were validated and magnified. When Marcus began declining these invitations and instead joined a philosophy discussion group that met at a Manhattan bookstore, he noticed his entire perspective on work challenges began to shift. Aristotle provides deeper insight into this principle through his analysis of friendship, which he categorized into three distinct types: those of utility, pleasure, and the good. Friendships of utility are transactional. We associate with people because they provide something we need. Friendships of pleasure are based on enjoyment and entertainment. But the highest and most valuable form of friendship, according to Aristotle, is the friendship of the good, based on mutual respect and admiration of each other's virtues. These virtue-based relationships are inherently positive because they are rooted in a mutual striving for excellence and moral development. Jennifer, building her Los Angeles tech startup, discovered this when she joined a mastermind group of entrepreneurs focused not just on business success, but on ethical leadership and personal growth. Unlike her previous networking groups that focused solely on metrics and competition, this group challenged her to consider the broader impact of her work and supported her through setbacks with wisdom rather than mere sympathy. Plato's allegory of the cave provides a powerful metaphor for understanding how our environment shaped our perception of reality. In this famous story, prisoners chained in a cave believe that shadows cast on the walls represent reality because that's all they've been exposed to. When one prisoner escapes and sees the world outside, the sun, trees, and actual objects casting the shadows, he realizes the profound limitations of his previous understanding and becomes capable of achieving a higher state of knowledge and wisdom. This metaphor beautifully illustrates how expanding our surroundings to include positive and enlightening influences can profoundly change our perspective and understanding. David, our Boston medical resident, experienced this transformation when he began attending lectures by physicians who emphasized not just clinical excellence, but the philosophical dimensions of healing. These mentors helped him see medicine not as a series of potential failures, but as a noble calling requiring both technical skill and moral courage. Carl Jung's exploration of the collective unconscious and archetypal patterns provides additional insight into the importance of surrounding ourselves with positivity. According to Jung, our psyche is influenced by shared memories and ideas that form what he called the collective unconscious. These shared cultural elements shape how we perceive the world and ourselves, often operating below our conscious awareness. By choosing environments that are supportive and positive, we can influence the archetypal patterns that dominate our personal narratives, shifting from those that emphasize fear and inadequacy to those that embody strength and self-actualization. Amanda, the Seattle software engineer, noticed this shift when she began participating in online communities focused on women in technology who celebrated each other's achievements rather than competing or complaining about industry challenges. In practical terms, surrounding ourselves with positivity means much more than just being around cheerful people or consuming uplifting content. It involves engaging with materials and activities that reinforce our philosophical and life goals, creating a comprehensive ecosystem that supports our growth. It means participating in communities, both online and offline, where discussions are rooted in encouragement and constructive feedback rather than criticism and negativity. This requires us to be vigilant about the media we consume, making conscious choices to engage with books, films, podcasts, and programs that inspire and educate rather than those that perpetuate fear, despair, or mindless entertainment. Carlos, the Miami real estate agent, transformed his daily commute by replacing talk radio filled with political arguments and economic doom with audiobooks on Stoic philosophy and interviews with successful entrepreneurs who overcame significant challenges. Creating a positive environment also means designing our physical spaces to reflect the values and virtues we admire. This can be as simple as maintaining a clean and organized living space, which according to Stoic practice, mirrors a clean and organized mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being." A well-ordered environment supports this daily commitment to virtue. Jennifer decorated her Los Angeles office with quotes from philosophers and innovators who inspire her, creating visual reminders of the mindset she wants to cultivate. She replaced the typical startup posters celebrating hustle culture with images and words that emphasize sustainable success, ethical leadership, and balanced achievement. Seneca's wisdom echoes through time when he writes, "Hang on to your youthful enthusiasms, you'll be able to use them better when you're older." By surrounding ourselves with positivity, we are essentially cultivating and protecting enthusiasms that align with our better natures. This not only enhances our own lives but also sets a standard and creates a beacon for others who are part of our circles, thereby creating a ripple effect of positivity that extends far beyond our immediate experience. 5. From philosophy to practice, embodying Stoic virtue in daily life. It's 7 a.m. in Chicago, and Amanda sits at her kitchen table with her laptop open, facing a particularly challenging coding problem that's been frustrating her team for weeks. 6 months ago, she would have immediately spiraled into self-doubt. "I'm not smart enough for this. Everyone else probably knows the solution already." Today, she takes a different approach. She closes her eyes, recalls Epictetus' powerful directive, "First say to yourself what you would be and then do what you have to do," and asks herself, "What would a skilled, confident engineer do right now?" Then she does exactly that, breaks the problem into smaller components and begins systematically working through each piece. In our journey to overcome negative thinking, the Stoics remind us with unwavering clarity that understanding and intention alone are not enough. Action is absolutely essential. This straightforward directive underscores a profound Stoic truth that separates philosophy from mere intellectual exercise. Our ideals must be manifested through our deeds, not just our thoughts. The gap between knowing what we should do and actually doing it is where character is forged and where transformation becomes real. Taking action in the Stoic sense means engaging in behaviors and practices that reinforce our philosophical ideals every single day. It involves making deliberate choices, moment by moment, that align with our values of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. By embodying these virtues in our actions, we challenge the negative thoughts that claim we are incapable or unworthy, thereby rewriting our narrative from one of limitation to one of empowerment and self-efficacy. Consider Marcus, our Wall Street financial analyst, who decided to implement what he calls Stoic trading practices. Instead of letting market volatility trigger panic and negative self-talk, he developed a systematic approach. Before making any major decision, he pauses and asks himself 3 questions based on Stoic principles. What is within my control here? What virtues can I practice in this situation? How can I respond in a way that reflects my values rather than my fears? This isn't just philosophical contemplation, it's actionable wisdom that has improved both his performance and his peace of mind. Aristotle provides crucial insight into this principle through his doctrine of the mean, where virtue is not just a state of mind, but a state of character that results from the habitual practice of choosing the mean between excess and deficiency. This practice is inherently active and requires constant engagement with real-world situations. For Aristotle, virtue is like a skill that must be practiced repeatedly to be mastered. We become just by performing just actions, brave by performing acts of bravery, and temperate by performing acts of temperance. David, our Boston medical resident, discovered this truth during his most challenging rotation in the emergency room. Instead of allowing his fear of making mistakes to paralyze him, he began practicing what he calls courage in small doses. Each day, he would identify one situation where he could practice speaking up with confidence, whether asking a clarifying question during rounds, offering a suggestion during a difficult case, or simply introducing himself to a new colleague with genuine warmth. These small acts of courage gradually built his confidence and changed his internal narrative from "I don't belong here" to "I'm learning and growing every day." Plato contributes to this understanding through his theory of forms, which posits that to know the good is to do the good. In other words, true knowledge, once genuinely attained, necessarily results in right action. This isn't abstract philosophy, it's a practical principle that suggests our understanding of Stoic virtues will naturally flow into virtuous behavior when that understanding is authentic and deep. Jennifer, building her Los Angeles tech startup, experienced this connection between knowledge and action when she truly internalized the Stoic principle of focusing on what she could control. Instead of spending energy worrying about competitors, market conditions, or investor opinions, all things outside her direct control, she channeled that energy into improving her product, developing her team, and refining her business model. This shift from anxious thinking to productive action transformed not only her business prospects but her entire relationship with uncertainty. Carl Jung's concept of individuation, the psychological process of integrating the conscious with the unconscious to achieve self-actualization, further highlights the absolute necessity of action in personal transformation. For Jung, this integration doesn't occur through contemplation alone, but through active encounters with the world that challenge our existing frameworks and compel us to grow. He argued with characteristic insight, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do," stressing that our true character and psychological maturity are expressed through our actions, not our intentions. Lisa, the Denver consultant, applied this principle when facing her fear of public speaking, which had been holding back her career advancement. Instead of simply reading about confidence or visualizing success, she committed to a systematic program of action. Joining Toastmasters, volunteering to present at team meetings, and gradually taking on larger speaking opportunities. Each action, no matter how small, was a vote for the person she wanted to become rather than the person her fears told her she was. Therefore, Stoic action involves much more than just combating negative thoughts. It's about proactively living out the virtues that define Stoicism in concrete, measurable ways. It's about making choices, both small and large, that reflect a commitment to self-improvement and philosophical integrity. Whether it's choosing to speak kindly in a difficult situation, opting to face a long-standing fear head-on, or deciding to forgive someone who has wronged us, each action is a deliberate step towards becoming the person we aspire to be. Moreover, taking Stoic action means embracing the challenges that life throws our way as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to avoid. Instead of shying away from difficult circumstances, Stoics see these as arenas in which to practice virtue. Each challenge becomes a call to action, a chance to demonstrate resilience, practice patience, or reaffirm commitment to our principles. Carlos, the Miami real estate agent, transformed his approach to rejection by viewing each no from a potential client as an opportunity to practice emotional regulation and professional grace. Instead of taking rejection personally and spiraling into negative self-talk, he developed a post-rejection ritual, thanking the person for their time, asking for feedback if appropriate, and then immediately identifying one thing he could improve for the next interaction. In practical terms, taking Stoic action can be as simple as setting daily goals that reflect our values, engaging in community service that fosters justice and kindness, or maintaining disciplines like journaling and meditation that encourage reflection and self-control. Each of these actions not only counters negative thinking but also builds a stronger, more virtuous self through the accumulated weight of consistent, principled choices. The Stoic voice, wielding words as instruments of virtue. Sarah stands before her marketing team in Manhattan about to deliver the presentation that 6 months ago would have filled her with dread. But now, as she opens her mouth to speak, she remembers Epictetus' wisdom: first learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak. Her words flow not from anxiety or the need to impress, but from a deep understanding of her message and a commitment to serve her audience. This transformation represents the final frontier in conquering negative thinking, mastering the power of our words, both spoken and unspoken. Stoic philosophy emphasizes that it's not only our actions that reflect our virtues, but also our speech. The power of words in shaping our reality cannot be overstated. They are the bridge between our internal world and external expression, the tools through which we can build up or tear down the inner citadel of our minds. Marcus Aurelius, in his personal writings, often reflected on how to communicate effectively and truthfully, emphasizing that our words should be seasoned with the virtues we cultivate: honesty, restraint, and kindness. When David speaks to patients' families in Boston, he no longer allows his inner critic to whisper doubts about his competence. Instead, he channels Stoic principles into his communication, speaking with compassion, acknowledging uncertainty when appropriate, and focusing on what he can offer rather than what he cannot control. His words become instruments of healing rather than sources of his own anxiety. The power of words extends far beyond interpersonal interactions. In our internal dialogues, those constant conversations we have with ourselves, the words we choose can significantly influence our self-perception and emotional state. Negative self-talk, that persistent internal critic, can be particularly destructive, leading to decreased motivation and increased feelings of helplessness. Conversely, positive self-talk, grounded in Stoic virtues, can empower and uplift us in remarkable ways. Marcus, our Wall Street analyst, transformed his relationship with market volatility by changing his internal language. Instead of telling himself, "I'm going to lose everything" during market downturns, he learned to say, "This is an opportunity to practice equanimity and make rational decisions." Same external situation, completely different internal experience, all through the conscious choice of words. Jung's insights into language and the unconscious remind us that words both reflect and shape the unconscious impulses that drive our behavior. By bringing these impulses into conscious awareness through mindful dialogue and reflection, we can better integrate our psychological components, leading to greater wholeness and psychological health. Therefore, the power of words in Stoicism is not merely theoretical but deeply practical. It encompasses our dialogues with others, our internal monologues, and even the way we engage with the broader culture. Each word we choose carries weight, building or breaking down, enlightening or obscuring, healing or hurting. As we conclude this journey through Stoic wisdom, remember that the words you choose and the actions you take forge the path to a life lived with virtue and purpose. Let Stoicism guide your way, turning every challenge into an opportunity for growth. If this exploration has resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe to Stoic Vivu, like this video, and share it with others on their philosophical journey. Together, we're building not just knowledge, but a community of wisdom and strength.